Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all new episode of PR from the Heart's children's book spotlight series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 158. That is the 158th trolley stop here at PR from the Heart. We are fully immersed in the 4-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight series. So thank you very much for spending some quality time with us here in our neighborhood. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager here at PR from the Heart. We are super excited to be able to reconnect with all of you once again, wherever you are and wherever you may be. We hope that you are continuing to enjoy the back to school season, depending upon where you are at in this country. You may already start to see one of my favorite John Denver songs. There was a song called Falling Leaves. When you're out here in San Diego, you really don't see many falling leaves, but maybe you're nourishing yourself with some apple cider. Maybe the fireplace is already starting to kind of burn up a little bit and you're just curling up with a great children's book. And of course, here at the Children's Book Spotlight series, especially during our anniversary celebrations each and every year, we always spotlight some of the, I guess I'm kind of channeling my inner Bobby Boucher from The Waterboy. We're talking high quality H2O, but we're talking about high quality children's books on the Children's Book Spotlight series, always during our anniversary celebrations. And it's interesting because, let's be honest, as we tend to do as adults in life, we tend to take life very seriously. Yes, raise your hand. We always love honesty here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. So raise your hand if you tend to take life a little way too seriously every now and again. We see some hands from Tim, myself. We see even the adults on screen as well too. But the little ones, our children, they are doing their part to remind us to enjoy life, to be able to, shall we even say, take a bite out of life, so to speak. And it's interesting because when you also find yourself doing some grocery shopping and, it's easier to go to the Haagen-Dazs ice cream or the Lay's potato chips and whatnot. It's really not nourishing in the most healthiest of ways, but you go to the fruit department, right? You go to the produce section and it's like, you know what? You always feel better. You feel more invigorated, so to speak. But, let's be honest, fruit, they have emotions, they have feelings, they are true characters, needless to say. And here at the Children's Book Spotlight series, we always love to color coordinate as well, too. So as you see, we've got the purple that covers the plum.
Oh, nice.
And you see here with the shirt that I'm wearing, I know I'm kind of looking like a human creamsicle here this week on the Children's Book Spotlight series, but I guess this is the closest to peach that I could find. So thanks to one of our newest neighbors here at the Children's Book Spotlight series and two of our favorite new characters, they're reminding us to be able to enjoy the adventures of life and to truly savor the succulence of life, so to speak. We encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest on the Children's Book Spotlight series, Tim McCanna. We've included that in the description below. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. You can purchase your copy of Peach and Plum, Here We Come, which is the first installment in the Peach and Plum early graphic novel series. The trolley does not have to travel very far, thanks to our friends and neighbors at Little Brown Books for Young Readers. And here at PR from the Heart, we just go from San Diego to San Jose. So we're keeping it efficient because even though the cost of gas is kind of fluctuating here and there, we always like to be efficient as well too on the Children's Book Spotlight series. So joining us here to be able to talk about Peach and Plum, Here We Come, his wonderful author journey, our featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, children's author and illustrator, the creator of the Peach and Plum series, Tim McCanna. Tim, thanks for joining us here today and being a part of our 4-year anniversary celebration at the Children's Book Spotlight series. How are things with you?
Wow, John, that was amazing. I couldn't have said it better myself. So that was a lovely introduction, but I took some mental notes there because we made some lovely connections, and I'm so excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so excited that we're all excited to be able to share Peach and Plum. But of course, some housekeeping notes before we begin. If you're saying, if anything, Tim, John, I'm hungry. I am now ready to take a bite out of life. If the lovable characters that are Peach and Plum are opening up your heart, if they're lifting your spirits, if you feel that this message needs to be shared with someone in need, one of the many ways that you can pledge your support For Tim, for Peach and Plum, here we come. And for us here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series and Pierre from the Heart is to subscribe to Pierre from the Heart's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop that you are now enjoying as part of the 4-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight Series on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. One of the best ways we always start off our conversations, what we call our trolley stops here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series, a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors, Mr. Rogers. Everyone always has an origin story, Tim. It always begins somewhere, someplace. And for some people, it's a matter of their earliest memories. Like, let's say if you want to be a reporter, you have one of those little composition notebooks and you're writing down great ideas for stories. For those who want to be children's authors or illustrators, maybe one of their earliest memories is drawing at a very age, maybe preschool, kindergarten, that kind of thing. But especially those who are connected, their purpose, their mission, their dharma for children, there's always either an event or a series of events, some sort of beginning, starting point where it all began. For those of our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars who are learning about you and your work and Peach and Plum, the series, could you tell us where it really all began for you and when you knew that your mission and purpose was tied to children and also to become a children's book author and illustrator?
Okay, well, that's great. Well, I have a number of origin stories, but let me address the craft one first, which is a fairly common origin story for children's writers, which is I had a background in writing music and plays and musicals and loved being creative, but I had never considered writing books for kids. And then, of course, I had kids of my own and started reading picture books to them at an early age. And our library was pretty small. We had a couple of the classics like Where the Wild Things Are, but eventually you can only read that book so many times before you want to branch out. So I went to my local library, I went to the local indie bookshops and started to look for new material to read to my kids. And it just opened my eyes to this amazing art form that just you can tell so many different types of stories and the way that they work with words and illustrations. And I really had only a very surface level knowledge or understanding of picture books, of how diverse they could be, about how they were made. And I instantly, as I was reading these books to my kids, thought, I want to give this a go. And didn't know how to jump in other than to just jump in and start writing. And I realized that I needed a little bit of extra help. And that comes in the form of building community and networking and finding other people that have similar goals. And so I would go to workshops just to kind of get a grasp. I would read books. I would join an organization called SCBWI, which is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, which really kind of built my community, got me my critique group. And sooner or later, you know, whatever type of work you want to get into, you immerse yourself in it, you learn about it, you make friends and you make connections. And over the course of a few years, I made my first sale of a picture book. And from then on, got an agent and started writing picture books for many years. And then come to, if I'm going to connect it to Peach and Plum, you know, around 2017, I was still writing picture books, but sales were kind of dipping for me. I wasn't really selling all that many picture books. I don't know. No, it wasn't for lack of trying, but I was noticing that the stuff that I was sending out just wasn't selling. And I had to really question, like, is it me? Like, what's wrong? What happened? I was selling all these picture books. And then around 2020, we were in the middle of the pandemic and it was July and I was on the couch in the house quarantining. We didn't have COVID at that time, but we were just kind of stuck indoors. And I was looking for a new project to work on, and I was about to kind of dive into kind of falling into all my old habits of writing the same old picture books that weren't selling. And I got about halfway down the page of this new idea that I had for Peach and Plum, which was like just kind of a buddy book about two characters that didn't really know where it would go. And just decided to kind of change directions because I knew I needed to make some sort of change. I didn't know what, but as an exercise, I just had the two characters talking to each other. Just didn't describe any of the scenes, just had them interact. And it was almost like writing a script. And it instantly felt different. It felt exciting. And it felt like I was in a new direction that I hadn't tried before. And usually when I do that, I end up surprising myself, and it turns out to be some of my best work when I'm not falling into my old patterns and habits, but I'm trying something new. And sure enough, not only did, writing the manuscript in a new way open new possibilities, but I thought this could be my opportunity to illustrate my first book, because I never illustrated any of my picture books. And I was very nervous about that because I don't have an illustration background. I have some creative backgrounds, and I did graphic design for a few years in advertising. So I pulled out my iPad and a pencil and started working digitally, and one thing led to another, and I shared it with people and they loved it. And it gave me that boost of confidence that I didn't quite have yet, and thought, I think I can actually do this. And long story now short, I spent just a few months working on that early draft of Peach and Plum, showed it to my agent, she loved it, we sent it out, and then Little Brown Books for Young Readers bought it up. It was a 2-book deal, and so the first one's out, and the second one comes out early next year.
I love that. I love that how everything always has a way of working itself out, and everything always has a way of coming together. And I think that, especially whether it be leading into the pandemic, during the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, there's been many times where people might not necessarily want to throw in the towel, but they're kind of at that tipping point, so to speak. And you touch upon a few things about being able to try something new, right? We're already into the final quarter of the year. We're already starting to plan ahead for the new year. And it's a matter of, it's interesting, the past couple of days, the word tweak has come to mind, so to speak, and not the legendary South Park character, but tweaking things. So it's a matter of, for all, we always like to, provide some encouragement for our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars who tune into the Children's Book Spotlight series, that if you feel that you're on the right path, but if you feel that you're not necessarily where you want to be, just be open to tweaking the process. I'm really glad that you were able to touch upon that. Let's be honest, Tim, we're all human and divine, as I like to say. We all navigate through the human experience. So we have those things called emotions and feelings, right? Which Peach and Plum proudly display within the course of your book, Peach and Plum, Here We Come. When it comes to doing things for the first time, or even just moving into the next steps of our path and purpose, we can experience challenges, difficulties, problems, stressors, troubles, worries, you name it. They're kind of the same kind of energy, so to speak. And it's interesting. I always joke around about this because in life, I feel that many of us want life to be like rainbows and gumdrops. And it's interesting, as I was reading Peach and Plum, Here We Come, I'm thinking that rainbows and gumdrops sound like the cousins to Peach and Plum, so to speak. But could you share with our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, some of those specific challenges? I know that you kind of touched upon a few of them, whether it be like, writing the same kind of picture book that you had mentioned beforehand, whether it be challenges that you were experiencing early on in your career, whether it be specific challenges and difficulties that you were experiencing in the creation process of Peach and Plum, Here We Come. And then could you share with us what helped you to move through to get to the other side of those challenges and difficulties leading into the release, and now that Peach and Plum, Here We Come is now available for everyone to enjoy?
Right. Well, I think you have to kind of make opportunities for yourself to fail. And if you don't put yourself out there and you stay safe, you'll never find out exactly where you could go next. And so I think with Peach and Plum, I set out to find opportunities for them to run into difficulties in their friendship. because that's the way the world works. Even the best of friends don't always get along, or they have to problem solve together. And so it sort of reflected my path as a creator and addressing road bumps or potholes or whatever you want to call them, the different challenges that come up, especially in being a creative artist in any form. There's going to be pushback. You're going to feel rejected. You're going to not know what the next step should be. And my wife would often tell me, like, you know what's going to happen when you do nothing. Nothing's going to happen when you do nothing. So when I would say, like, I don't know if I'm going to go to that conference this weekend, she's like, well, you know what's going to happen if you don't go. Nothing's going to happen. But if you do go, you might meet somebody, you might get some inspiration. So I've tried to live by that with the way that I approach my creativity and just treating it as a career, as the work that I do, that I know that I'm not going to get everything right. I know that it's not going to be easy, but that's a part of the challenge. That's the part that makes me better. And that's what I applied to Peach and Plum, which was, if it is all sunshine and gumdrops for them,
yep.
It's not realistic, even for two characters that are fruits, and B, it's not interesting storytelling. I've done enough critiquing of other people's work, especially newcomers into the industry, where I've said, look, this is a sweet story, but you need more conflict, or this character needs a bigger goal, or you need to raise the stakes. And so I knew that with Peach and Plum, I needed it. I was looking for kind of slice of life moments that kind of harken back to my own childhood, whether it was playing ball with the neighbor kids or riding bikes and falling off of them and getting back on. And as soon as I added those little elements of trouble, it makes the story, it makes the characters pop more, it makes you care for the characters more, and it makes the storytelling that much more interesting. And then on top of that, I'm trying to write in rhyme. So I'm really trying to make everything as difficult for myself as possible. Okay, so write a early graphic novel, illustrate it, and then why not do it all in rhyme? But that's actually a really fun challenge, and it's kind of my sweet spot in terms of where I like to be creatively. And I hadn't seen any early graphic novels that are in rhyme, and it's been such a joyful, wonderful experience to take at least one element that I feel strongly about and that I feel confident in doing, and applying it to a format that's kind of out of my comfort zone. So that's how I've stayed grounded in this new chapter, if you will, of my work.
I love that, and thank you for sharing that. It's the world of early readers, of course, for parents and educators. Obviously, it starts off with the board books, and then it goes to the picture books, and then there is the early readers, and then there's the middle grade S kinds of books, and then there's the things that are beyond the scope of that and whatnot.
Right.
And it's interesting because we've, over the past several years, had the blessing of becoming good friends and colleagues with Matthew Cordell, and he's published his Cornbread and Poppy early reader series as well too. So the team at Little Brown Books for Young Readers is definitely on point, on purpose, and on target when it comes to be able to sharing fun and lighthearted messages, especially leading into the back to school season, because let's be honest, this is also the first true back to school season in 3 years for kids. And we've all gone through stuff over the past couple of years, whether it be little ones or us big kids as well too. And it's important to have this fun, this giggling kind of energy, so to speak. And we see that in Peach and Plum, Here We Come. Again, we appreciate all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, for spending some time with us here in our neighborhood at PR from the Heart as part of our 4-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight series. This is episode number 158 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Our featured guest here, Tim McCanna, is joining myself, John Masiulionis. We encourage you to, if you haven't had the opportunities to do so, to purchase your copy of Peach and Plum, Here We Come. You can head on over to Tim's official website. He's keeping it simple, his first name and his last name.com. It'd be interesting if someone had that as their official website, first name, last name.com, but it's actually timmckenna.com. You can head on over to amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, while purchasing your copy of Peach and Plum, Here We Come, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Little Brown Books for Young Readers. You can also leave a 5-star review. That's one of the many ways you can pledge your support for Tim, to let him know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, those who love great children's books, and yes, those who love Peach and Plum, peaches and plums, and all kinds of fruit, so to speak. Now, of course, is the time in the Children's Book Spotlight series. It's one of the most fun times. It's when we dive into the pages of the book that it is that we are now sharing. And of course, it is Peach and Plum, Here We Come. So your book is not the traditional children's book. One is that it's an early graphic novel series. 2, it's written in rhyme. And 3, it has this comic book strip energy and appeal to it. So it's almost like this, kind of like, you know, coming off the heels of the US Open for all those tennis fans out there. It's like this little silent, these little volleys between Peach and Plum, and just these real, very simplistic, you know, interactions where, you know, they're obviously in Fruitdale, which I think is, you know, a wonderful name for a town, village, city. School is out, there's work to be done on their end of things, and they're obviously immersed and they're enjoying the summer with different kinds of adventures. One of our favorite expressions here on the program, we don't like to give away the whole kit and caboodle. I know it sounds kind of like a, you know, turn of the century, you know, razzmatazz kind of term, but that always means to, you know, not give away the full thing, because obviously we want to encourage, you know, parents, educators, grandparents, little ones to be able to enjoy Peach and Plum, Here We Come. Could you give us a little sneak peek for those who are learning about the book for the first period and point in time, and they say, you know, what are some of the characteristics, the emotions, the quirks between Peach and Plum and some of the adventures that they go on? Could you share with us a little bit about Peach and Plum and the adventures that they go on? And I think even before that, Peach and Plum, you could have chosen any fruit. You could have chosen apples, you could have chosen grapes, you could have chosen apricots, so to speak. So why, the million-dollar question, the purple elephant in the room, so to speak, is why Peach and Plum? Let's start with that first off.
Peach and Plum just really started out as nothing more than a title. I didn't know anything about the characters. I didn't know anything about their personalities. And what's fascinating as a writer is you invent these characters out of thin air, and they start to talk to you. They really do. They start to kind of take on lives of their own the more that you put them in interesting scenarios. And what I did not realize going in was that Peach and Plum were not just like equal in any way. They were very different characters and expressed that in such surprising ways to me. And it became very clear that Plum was sort of the hot-headed one, more emotional, kind of getting himself into trouble, and Peach is the calmer, more parent-esque character. I mean, more like a big brother figure to Plum. And as soon as that dynamic started to come into play and I started to feel like I knew these characters more, it kind of set me up like I could pick out like any random summertime scenario and just get a sense of like, okay, I think Plum's going to go this direction, Peach is going to have to help him out this way. And I try to balance it out so that sometimes Peach has, like in the second book, Peach has a few problems that Plum has to bail him out of. But overall, Plum is the feisty one. Plum is the one who just is always running into trouble, and Peach kind of has to figure things out. So, for instance, in the very first chapter, which is called Play Ball, it really harkens back to my own childhood, my memories of playing baseball with the neighbor kids, just with like a wiffle ball bat and a tennis ball, and no bases, just sort of running in circles. And they would always be fun for a few minutes, and then somebody would either get hit by the tennis ball, or we'd be calling balls and strikes and someone would be mad about that. And I just felt like that was one of the most universal experiences of summertime, whether it's baseball or any game, of like kids playing together and figuring out how to do it in a friendly way, but also expressing their opinions about things. And so I put Peach and Plum into this scenario where, okay, we're bored. What are we going to do? Let's play a ball game. And then the rules start to come into the game, and that's when tensions arrive.
Mm-hmm.
And with everything that I've strived for with Peach and Plum, it's to show that, you know, those really precious childhood friendships that we have, they are only strengthened by those moments where maybe we don't see eye to eye. Maybe somebody does get their feelings hurt. Maybe somebody feels left out or feels wronged, or they just fall off a bike and need comforting. I've set out to have Peach and Plum have that kind of rich childhood friendship where they're backing each other up, but they're still having moments where they disagree. It's okay to disagree. It's okay that they're not the same exact character. If they had ended up being just two kind of la-di-da, we are fruit and we have fun, I just don't think that wouldn't have been what I would have wanted to write, and that's definitely not what they wanted. They let me know very clearly that they wanted rich lives. They wanted emotion, and they wanted conflict, and they wanted to solve their problems together. And I think the nice part about all of these little episodes that they have is that by the end of them, I like that they're not so angry at each other that their friendship's over. They are true best friends, and they're always there for each other.
I love that. And the fact that there's 5 short stories, there's 4 mini comics. And I know that by the time that I got to the end of the book, it felt like there was so much that happened in a relatively short book, so to speak. You know, a lot of times when you read the traditional children's picture books, which are tried and true and they're absolutely wonderful, it could just be one story that's happening throughout one arc that's happening throughout the whole book, right? And with Peach and Plum, Here We Come, there's multiple adventures that they experience on their end of things. So if, you know, kids are wanting to be able to see and feel and experience what Peach and Plum are all about, again, their different quirks, their mannerisms, the different backdrops and locales, you really set the scenes beautifully for what will be coming next, which we'll be talking about as well too. Some of the specific key heartfelt themes and messages found within Peach and Plum, Here We Come. One is obviously friendship. And I think that, you know, especially with little ones, if they're moving through issues of insecurities, worthiness, self-love, it's so important that they know that there are people that are there out there that care about them, trusted adults, whether it be mom, dad, whether it be sister, brother, whether it be their teacher, their principal, their grandma, their grandpa, but the importance of best friends. I wanted to touch upon that as well too, because I think that's one of the most important messages and themes found within your book. Why was it important for you, as not only a father, but also a children's book author and illustrator, and really, you know, connecting with kids, especially right now, in addition to parents and grandparents and educators? Why was it important for you to be able to really not only just touch upon, but really show tangibly the importance of friendship and really what it's all about, especially right now?
Yeah, that's interesting because I grew up an only child. I had some step siblings who were, you know, much, much older than me. But I really, you know, for all intents and purposes, grew up an only child, and we lived kind of out in the country. I only had a few number of friends around the neighborhood. I've been lucky enough through different chapters of my life, whether it was high school, grade school, college, I've always had best friends. Like I've always found at least one person to kind of feel like that's my person that I can really connect with. But I think that especially in those early grade school years, those kindergarten to, fifth, sixth grade, friendship is just so important and so valuable. And I especially when you feel like a kid who is kind of out in the weeds by yourself, and you're searching for companionship, and you're searching for activities with the neighbor kids who maybe aren't your best friends. They're just kind of the kids that are in the neighborhood that you play with. And so I had that dynamic growing up. My own children, I have two children that are now teenagers, but I've had the pleasure of watching them grow up and them having their own best friends. And I had not written anything like that. All of my picture book characters, and I tend to tell writers, like, focus on a central main character, tell that central main character's story. And in the case of Peach and Plum, I modeled it in a way, or I was at least inspired by a book that mattered a lot to me as a kid when I was first in grade school, which were the Frog and Toad books by Arnold Lobel. And those friendships, I decided that I wanted to really concentrate on the dynamic of two characters, not just one. And in some ways, they are kind of the two halves of my own personality, which I think a lot of writers end up doing. You feel like the characters that you write are kind of part of who you are. But in terms of the value of friendships, or why friendships need to be a part of young books for kids, I think that it's just, there's so many different directions that you can go with two characters versus a single character that's got their own little plan or agenda or goal that they're trying to get. But when two characters have to work together, that's something very different. And it kind of applies not only to just like your two friends, but how you work with your classroom, how you work with your community, how you become a part of not just yourself, but you and how you relate with other people.
I appreciate you communicating that, because I feel that that was also another message that came to mind while reading your book, is the importance of working together. Because how does the expression go? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same result, right? But there's times where, when you have challenges, you have conflict. One of my favorite movies and documentaries of all time is Won't You Be My Neighbor, which talks about the life story of Mr. Rogers.
Right.
And whenever they were in the neighborhood of make-believe, there was conflict, real life conflict that happened there. And it was important that everyone that was there took the time to work together and work things out. And that's what Peach and Plum are obviously doing in Peach and Plum, Here We Come. And then some. And look at that. It all rhymes. And look at that alliteration right there as well. So we're beginning to wind down our time with our featured guest here on episode number 158 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, Tim McCannis. He is joining us to celebrate the 4-year anniversary of the Children's Book Spotlight series here at PR from the Heart. We encourage you, if you haven't had the opportunities to do so, to head on over to Tim's official website, timmccanna.com. We've included that in the description below. You can also, if Amazon is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can head on over there, purchase your copy of Peach and Plum, Here We Come, and leave a 5-star review. That's one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Tim, to let him know that he is doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, those who love great children's books, those who love going to the produce department and enjoying their fruit as well too. You're really doing something very special with this book and with your series. On social media, you put together this wonderful video series, which really takes readers behind the scenes of the book and the characters and the process. And I can definitely tell, because over the 8 years that I've done publicity work, the 4 years that I've done interviews with children's authors, there's a lot of books there's a lot of different people, there's a lot of different personalities and whatnot. The way in which you connect with people, that was the first thing that I saw about you. It's like, wow, you really care about these characters. You want people to enjoy them. You're communicating it really from your heart. Like, it really feels that you love what you're doing. And this is why not only this book, but this series is going to be successful and is going to be reaching many generations of children for years and generations to come. Could you tell us a little bit more about that video? Just like, why was it important for you? One of the things that we learned about the pandemic was the importance of connection and the healthy reaching out, so to speak, and whatnot. But again, a lot of people just say, I have to do a video because I need to kind of get my message out there, and the social media specs and the algorithms. So some people will just force content out there.
Right.
But I think that the real content that stands out right now is authentic, true. It's an extension. It's a reflection of you, so to speak. So could you share with us a little bit about that, those videos that you've been working on, and the significance of those two, and why you wanted to be able to share your book and your message, and most importantly, your heart, in the way in which that you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think if I can stay organized in my thinking, it's kind of twofold. In one respect, I have found when I go to writing conferences and I hear somebody else talking about the origins of their book, kind of like what we're doing today, I tend to want to get that book because I have the backstory behind it. I love behind the music kind of documentaries and things, and so part of my marketing goal was to say, the more people understand my process and understand that the books don't just come out of thin air, that it takes work and it takes different types of craft to make a book happen. I thought, well, why don't I just share openly different phases of how the book came to be, and hopefully people who feel like they understand the book and have learned about it will feel compelled to get the book. But on the flip side, I learned I did not set out as I was writing picture books to want to become an educator or a mentor. But what I found was, out of desperation to find connection, when I moved from Colorado to California, I decided to volunteer for my local SCBWI chapter, just because I didn't have any friends out here. And I needed to make some connections, both friend-wise and business-wise, networking. And I started volunteering and got onto the regional team and discovered that what I didn't realize was how enjoyable it was to help other people find their way down their own path to publication, or at least find their own way in how they wanted to express themselves creatively, whatever their goals may be. And I had not really set out to do that, but it's led me down new paths of becoming a mentor and a critiquer and doing online classes. And it's been such an exciting part of my work that is just helping other people find their way into writing books for kids, because it's not easy, and you need other people to show you the way, or at least say, you're gonna be okay, you're doing the right thing, keep trying, and you'll get there. So with these Peach and Plum videos, there's also just, I have this passion for sharing like a little bit of how things work, and hopefully motivating or inspiring people to write their own works. And my voice, the way that I communicate, I tend to kind of have this all ages friendly style. Like I really love talking to kids, and I really love talking shop and like craft with adults. And with these Peach and Plum behind the book videos, I'm trying to kind of ride the line of being fun and silly and sharing, bite-sized bits of information that kids could enjoy in sort of a kid-friendly tone, but also throwing in actual actionable items that people who are interested in getting into either illustrating or writing can watch these and go, hey, well, if Tim can do it, maybe I can do it too.
That's you touched upon so much right there, and I think, you know, like, you probably had many authors, illustrators come along your way, children's authors and illustrators have come along my way, and they'll ask different questions like, what's the key to success? It's kind of like, you know, when Ponce de Leon, you know, several hundred years ago, he supposedly found the fountain of youth, right? People ask, how do you find the fountain of youth? How do you find the money tree? There's always these kinds of questions. And I always go back to the simple answer, and this is why I really resonate with the message and the heart and the mission and the dharma of Mr. Rogers. He would always talk and share, I like you just the way you are. That your authenticity, your realism, that each of us have gifts that we were born with, that we nurture, even that we learn, that we cultivate over time. And I really love how you have an energy of service. You have a servant's heart on your end of things as well. And again, like, this is just one of the reasons that there's going to be a little surprise. We always like to kind of give a couple of surprises for our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars. That, of course, in early 2023, we have not seen the last of Peach and Plum. Peach and Plum rule at school. So as you already know, one of the, I guess you'd call it one of the ground rules here at the Children's Book Spotlights is we don't give away the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak. So could you give us a little sneak peek at what our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and again, of course, our fellow shining stars. I just love holding these things. These shining stars are so adorable. What we can all expect when we see the next adventures of Peach and Plum in early 2023.
Oh, well, thank you for asking that, because, you know, as a writer who only wrote text for the longest time, I took for granted what illustrators have to do in order to make books come to be. And I learned through the trial and error of putting on the first book and illustrating that it was a challenge just to do two characters. Well, with the second book, Peach and Plum Rule at School, I thought, hey, how about, you know, I focus on their lives at school. Well, what that means is that you got to add a lot more characters to the stories. They're in class with other fruits. And so it was a whole new level of complexity, of scenarios, of adding new characters, which for the writer in me, I was like just writing up all these fun new scenes, but the illustrator who's, you know, still kind of learning the ropes and learning my way around this iPad, it was even more challenging. But everything that I learned from the first book, I translated over to the second and then took it to the next level. So it's much more detailed. I really love how the characters have been fleshed out. And then, of course, because it is so school-centric, every chapter has something to do with whether the first chapter is it's about the seating chart in their classroom. So I remember as a kid, you know, you get comfortable with where you are seated in your classroom, and maybe you're sitting next to your close friend. And then one day, either the teacher or in this case, the substitute teacher who shows up changes the seating arrangement. And for a young child, that can be really distressing. I actually have a memory of crying because I got sat next to somebody that I didn't want to sit next to. It was like the end of the world for me. And of course it wasn't, but we don't know that as kids. So of course, Peach and Plum, they want to sit next to each other. And in that first chapter of Peach and Plum Rule at School, they get split apart. And how are they going to deal with that? Well, Plum doesn't deal with it very well, and neither does Peach for that matter, but it all turns out to be, it works out in the end. But that's just one example of the kind of new level of problem solving that they have to go through, and a new dynamic is that school environment, which is really fun to be kind of playing around in.
I'm so looking for that, like just seeing like what other fruits possibly we'll see an apricot. You never know. Now
there is an apricot in their class. That's true. There is.
I love that. So, like the next, I'm going to be headed to the grocery store very shortly. And so like, it's interesting. Like now when I'm in the grocery store and I see peaches and plums, it's just like, come on guys, you got to come to life. One of the things about life, Tim, is that many people think that in life, we go to school, and we do. When we're little ones, we've got, pre-K, kindergarten, all the way through 8th grade. And then we've got high school, then we've got college. And then if we pursue further academia, PhD, things along the lines of that. But I really feel that life is a school. We learn each and every day through experiences, through relationships, and so much more. Undoubtedly, you learned a lot through the process of Peach and Plum, Here We Come. What has this book, this process of writing it, publishing it with Little Brown Books for young readers, promoting it, what has that process, and what have the characters, what has Peach and Plum taught you about yourself and taught you about life?
Oh, wow. Well, they've taught me that I have more to add. You get to a certain age and you're like, and I got to that point in 2017. I'd made my last picture book sale and then had sort of a lull. And I think they taught me that life is not just one long, steady stream of success. It's not a long, steady stream of failures, that there are ups, there are downs, that the more opportunities that you give yourself by trying new things, the better chance that something surprising might happen in your life, and that it's not all set in stone and written yet for what you want to do with yourself and how you want to express yourself creatively. And 5 years ago, I had no idea that I would be now writing and illustrating an early graphic novel. It just wasn't even in my head. And so being open to the fact that the world changes, I don't want to give a lot of credit to the pandemic because boo, pandemic, but the silver lining was that it put me in a scenario where I had to make a decision. Am I going to use this pandemic as an excuse to do nothing? Or am I going to use it as an excuse to find something new, to do something different? And that can be really hard. I know that's hard for a lot of people. It's easier said than done, for sure. But even the smallest things, whether it's, trying to write books or if it's just trying to do something different in your day-to-day life, which I'm trying to kind of express through Peach and Plum, is like day-to-day life, little scenarios that have their ups and downs. You can surprise yourself and you can do things you just never planned. And on a side note, I just want to mention, I love how you bring up Mr. Rogers. I was a kid of Mr. Rogers. I watched Mr. Rogers as a kid, and I've seen that documentary. And so I think he instilled in me a lot more than I realize as an adult. I think the things that he said to me as a kid stuck. And that's the power of Mr. Rogers and the way that he communicated with children and with adults. So anybody that models themselves after what he stood for, that's going to help you make those tough decisions when we run into pandemics, when we run into troubles that are unexpected, and the choices that we make, sometimes we're going to fail and sometimes we're going to succeed. But as long as we're staying positive and doing the right thing, I think the right things are going to happen.
I'm glad that you touched upon that, because I always go back to the analogy of the Australian boomerang. Right? If you throw the boomerang the right way, go like this, it eventually makes its way back to you. And a lot of times in life, when we're maybe not necessarily in the highest and best frame of mind, we can kind of channel our inner Janet Jackson's "What have you done for me lately" motif, right? And when we realize that things always have a way of working themselves out, when you put more love and grace and compassion and good out into the world, it eventually makes its way back to you in the process. One of the two ways that we close out every children's book spotlight series, one is a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors. We've touched upon him several times, so to speak. The beloved Mr. Rogers, the host of the long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He did this different times, whether it be through the neighborhood, whether it be when he taught during different college commencement speeches, different talks throughout the country. Most notably when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmy shortly before he passed from stomach cancer. He always kept the time, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or 60 seconds. He encouraged all of us to remember those who helped love us into being. And that was his way of saying to remember those peaches and plums, so to speak, along our path that helped us when we were feeling down, when we weren't believing in ourselves. That really inspired us to continue to move forward, that helped us to remember that we're loved and we're special just the way that we are. So who would you like to publicly recognize here on episode number 158 of the Children's Book Spotlight series that has helped love you, Tim McCanna, into being?
Well, I mean, I have to acknowledge my wife. First and foremost, she has transformed me in so many ways, and has been my supporter and my sounding board. And you know, if one person comes to mind, it's my partner. And she is my best friend. And you know, to bring it all around, I found my best friend, and it is the person that I'm with more than anyone else in the world, and have been with longer than anyone. So I'm lucky that she is as nurturing and such a great mother, and has been a great wife to me. And so she has had such, and she is a model for me. I try to be as good as she is in the things that she does, in the way that she interacts with people. So she's been a huge influence on me, and I wouldn't be where I am without her.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is so wonderful. Is there anyone else that you wanted to be able to publicly recognize, or is it fully your wife that you'd like to?
In terms of my career, or in terms of my life?
Life. Well, both life and career come to mind.
Well, I think in terms of anyone other than Trudy, I would say that I've been lucky. Like I said, I've been lucky in different chapters and stages of my life to have a series of best friends. And as you grow older, you move on to different parts of your life, and those best friends maybe aren't people that you interact with. So I've been fortunate enough to, if I can just broadly acknowledge anyone who was my best friend at one point or another, my college best friend, my post-college best friend, totally different people. My first best friend in grade school was Brad Gardner, and we were just thick as thieves. I think about the things that we did together, and I can see a lot of Peach and Plum in our two friends. So Brad, if you're out there, that friendship still means a lot to me. And that was back in the 1970s. I mean, we were, you know, just in first grade. And then talk about testing our friendship. I think we were in the same class for first grade. And then we felt like it was a diabolical plan against us. They never put us in the same class again, 2nd through 6th grade. And we were always furious about that we wanted to be able to sit next to each other in class. And he was always in the class across the hall, and they just split us up, we think intentionally. So, you know, and I'm just realizing that probably maybe ties into why I split Peach and Plum up in that first chapter of the second book. So yeah, in answer to your question, I just think friendship is so valuable, and you find different friends throughout your life for different reasons, and you take who you can get and you hold on to them for as long as you can. So just shout out to all those good friends that I've had.
That's awesome that you acknowledge that, because I know that over the past several months, especially, I've been reflecting back on the different relationships that I had, whether it be in grammar school, whether it be in high school, whether it be in college. And this is why, again, going back to what Mr. Rogers kind of, alluded to through the whole, who helped love you into being, acknowledging the fact that you still think about them every now and again, that you do, and they think about you, whether they are near, whether they're afar, whether they're in heaven. The last way that we always close out every children's book spotlight series, I really feel that we all have the gifts and the skills that are within to be able to bring our dreams, desires, and goals to life. And we have the abilities to do that for other people that come into our lives, whether it be our family, our friends, those who we serve in the process. And so, as a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite Disney animated classics of all time, we remember the late Robin Williams, and we remember the Genie of the Lamp. We remember Disney's Aladdin. So we have a little segment that we like to call Three Wishes. This Genie lamp has racked up a lot of mileage over the course of many years. Tim, you have given so freely to your family, to children, parents, families, educators, not only in California, not only across the country, but around the world. So this is your time to receive. So these three wishes, they can be for yourself, they can be for your family, they can be for the children of the world. I believe the only two disqualifiers are, one, you can't ask for more wishes, and two, you can't make someone fall in love with you. But obviously, you've got a big heart in that department, so you're all set there. So what would those three wishes be for yourself, Tim?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I didn't know I was going to get three.
Unexpected blessings.
All right. Well, I wish especially that friendship and dealing with problems and solving them together becomes infectious, not just for two people or for a community, but for the whole country and for the whole world, especially right now with so many things that are going on. I'm not going to wish for world peace here, but I will wish for friendship and for understanding and for problem solving in a way that people can feel heard and people can feel equal and validated. So that's one. I also wish for anyone, kids or adults, who want to express themselves, that they allow themselves to express themselves creatively and not to judge themselves, and to find any way to draw, to write stories, to write poems, to sing, to be a part of something bigger than yourself and express your joy, the things that you enjoy most. I wish for you to give yourself the same kind of opportunity that I've given myself, which is to be creative, to add something new and joyful to the world, because it is so much fun and it is so rewarding on so many levels. And then finally, my third wish is that when I do add fish to my new planted aquarium, that they don't all instantly die. I have gotten into this new hobby of mine, which is, we've had goldfish in the past and the tank's been empty, but the kids were like, when are we going to get new fish? And so I've gone down this rabbit hole of learning about planted aquarium, like live plants in aquariums, and adding more tropical freshwater fish. I am deep into this, and I've got the plants in, I've got the clean water, my pH is a little high. It's hard water, so I can only get certain kinds of fish. And I'm a few weeks away from like getting ready to put the first fish into my tank. And I am just wishing, please, Jeannie, grant me healthy fish as I take on this new journey into aquascaping and being an aquarist.
Oh, those three wishes. I can definitely feel that they emanate from your heart. We always believe here at the Children's Book Spotlight series that when those wishes come from your heart, that they have a greater likelihood and propensity to be able to come true. Again, raise your, this has been a magical trolley stop. Don't you think? This has been a wonderful trolley stop. Raise your hand if you have had fun on episode number 158 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. We see hands from myself, hands from Tim, hands from the little ones on screen. As we like to say, mission accomplished, job well done, double thumbs up. Again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to stay connected with Tim on social media. We've included his social media platforms in the description below, in addition to his website. You can keep this wonderful conversation flowing post Children's Book Spotlight series into the back to school season, into the holiday season, into 2023, for all teachers, principals, librarians who are interested in facilitating virtual and in-person author visits with Tim for the coming school year. You can also connect with him via his official website as well, too. If, again, Amazon is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can leave a 5-star review for Peach and Plum. Here we come. You can also leave a 5-star review. That's one of the many ways you can pledge your support for Tim, to let him know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, for those who love great children's books and those who love peaches and plums and fruits of all kinds in the process. You can also pre-order your copy if you feel guided to do so as well. A Peach and Plum Rule at School as well. And we don't like to assume anything here at the Children's Book Spotlight series, but I got an interesting feeling that you haven't seen the last Peach and Plum here through PR from the Heart in the Children's Book Spotlight series as well, too. Now, of course, if you are a children's author, if you are interested in sharing your inspiring story and the release of your brand new children's book, just like Tim did here this week, if you are interested in becoming a featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, we encourage you to head on over to our official website at prfromtheheart.com or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at PR from the Heart. We are also super excited as well, too, because literally, depending upon when you are watching this episode, we are headed across the country from San Diego all the way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to reconnect with one of our favorite neighbors. You remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on the long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We will be recording another all-new installment of PR from the Heart's Neighborly Reviews bookcast in downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. That will be available in literally just 1 week. So depending if you are watching this in video land after the fact, of course, you can enjoy episode number, I believe, 18 it's going to be, or 19 of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast. Whatever the September episode is, we hope that you enjoy it thoroughly via our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or our official YouTube channel as well, too, in the process. And as well, if you are a children's author and are interested in how we can be of service to you here at PR from the Heart leading into the forthcoming holiday season and early 2023 and beyond, if you're interested in facilitating a feature television interview or interviews in a city of your choosing, a book media tour in a city of your choosing, or for more information, again, on how we can help you in your next steps in your author journey, whether you're a self-published author or published author, head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, schedule your courtesy discovery call, and let us see how we can be of service to you. We're also looking forward to forthcoming editions of our Storytime with Mr. John series for all children, parents, families, and educators out in the San Diego, California area. More information to come for our forthcoming final 3 Storytime with Mr. John series events in October, November, and December. That is the second Saturday of each month at Glen Park in the Cardiff by the Sea area, right by the sea in San Diego, California area. One final time, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, to be able to, and of course our fellow Shining Stars as well, to head on over to Tim's official website, timmccanna.com, to leave a 5-star review if you feel guided to do so for Peach and Plum, Here We Come, the first installment in the Peach and Plum early graphic novel series. By leaving a 5-star review, that's one of the many ways you can pledge your support for Tim, to let him know that he is doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, those who love great children's books, and those who love peaches and plums and fresh produce. As we hear the trolley, we know that means that it is time to go. So we want to thank all of you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight series over the course of these past 4 years. As we like to say, without you, there would be no us. We want to thank all of you for your continued support of children's authors and illustrators all across the country and all around the world, just like Tim, who are doing much needed and wonderful work for children, parents, families, and educators, and those who love great children's books. We want to thank you for your continued support of local libraries and children's and independent bookstores, truly the pillars of our community. And above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home, the children of the world. One last tip of the cap to our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers. He reminded us in different ways, shapes, and forms, mainly through his own private numerology. Somehow Mr. Rogers weighed 143 pounds for his entire natural adult life. There's 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. He reminded all of us of our inherent worth and value of our gifts. He reminded all of us that we're loved and we're special just the way that we are. It's a little tip of the cap to Mr. Rogers. Our favorite numbers here at the Children's Book Spotlight series are 243. As a reminder that there's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you. That is our reminder that we love you. As Tim was very kind to give us some of his free time this week, we're reminding all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow Shining Stars, that you are loved, that you are special, that you are whole, that you are healthy, that you are complete, that we like you, that we love you just the way that you are. We see your authenticity, your creativity, your gifts as well, and most importantly, the importance of sharing those with the world. So again, for Tim McCanna, for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you for enjoying this very special trolley stop. That has been episode number 158 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, the continuation of the 4-year anniversary celebration of this very program that we've been blessed and grateful to do since the fall of 2018. We look forward to seeing all of you once again very soon for another magical trolley stop here in our neighborhood at PR from the Heart. But until then, again, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow Shining Stars. Goodbye for now.